What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 17, Monday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to give you my top DFS picks for this Monday Night Football showdown between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, NFL Week 17. Let's take a look at this Monday Night Football showdown between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so the Cleveland Browns are eliminated from the playoffs, but the Steelers are on the bubble. They got an outside chance at making the playoffs if they win this game. So I think I'm going to lean a little bit more towards a Pittsburgh Steelers stack just because of the desperation play here. So at the quarterback position, it is a coin flip. You got Ben Roethlisberger from the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger has only averaged 15.6 fantasy points per game on the season. He gets an average of 1.1 rush attempt per game. He's going to be about 44% owned, projected at 15.3 fantasy points here in Week 17 or here tonight, and he's $9,400 DraftKings salary. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 42 points scored in this game, with the Steelers favored by 2.5. So middle of the pack matchup here, and Ben Roethlisberger has scored 8, 12, and 29 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So he has not played well this season, but you see he does have some upside if he gets going. So I like Ben Roethlisberger here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, for the Cleveland Browns, we have Baker Mayfield, and the Pittsburgh Steelers give up the have the 9th worst defense overall. They give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield hasn't played all that well this season either, only averaging 14.5 fantasy points per game on the season. He's getting an average of 2.7 rush attempts per game. Going to be about 53% owned, projected at 15.3 fantasy points here tonight, and he's $9,200 DraftKings salary. He scored 14 and 16 fantasy points in his last 2 games, then 13 and 10 the 2 games before that. So really not putting up big numbers. I feel like Ben Roethlisberger might have a little more upside in this matchup, but it is a coin flip. So I like Baker Mayfield here versus the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, at the running back position, we got 2 studs on the slate. Then we got a player that's questionable, and if he plays, he's going to be a pretty decent play because he's low salary. So for the Cleveland Browns, the stud on the slate is Nick Chubb, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Nick Chubb has averaged 18.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 17.3 rush attempts per game, 1.9 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 66% owned, projected at 16.5 fantasy points here tonight. and he's 11,600 DraftKings salary. So I like this matchup. He's got a great matchup, and Nick Chubb has scored 30, 16, and 10 fantasy points in the last 3 games, up of 17, 23, and 17 rush attempts on top of 4, 1, and 4 pass targets. So he's gotten 20 plus touches in the last 3 games. Now, Kareem Hunt has not got much work. He's been injured. Let's see what his status is. He is questionable, limited in practice on Saturday. So if Kareem Hunt is out, that's probably going to solidify a solid 20 plus touches for Nick Chubb here versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if Kareem Hunt does play this game, that doesn't disqualify Nick Chubb, because in the previous 2 games that Kareem Hunt played, Nick Chubb still got 20 plus touches in each of those games. Not much action for Kareem Hunt, who has scored in the last 2 games that he played. He scored 4 and 2 fantasy points off of 2 and 7 rush attempts and 2 and 1 pass target. So it doesn't seem like he's fully healthy or getting the workload that he got earlier in the season. Now, if he does play here tonight, he is only 5,400 DraftKings salary. So if he happens to break a tackle or get in the end zone, then he'd be a decent play. If he does play, he'll be about 23% owned. But my eye is on Nick Chubb. But if Kareem Hunt does play, you may want to throw him in a lineup. Okay, so for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the stud on the slate is Najee Harris. And the Cleveland Browns have a middle-of-the-pack defense and a middle-of-the-pack defense defending opposing running backs. Najee Harris has averaged 18 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 17.9 rush attempts per game and 5.8 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 85% of the snaps, going to be about 54% owned, projected at 16.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's 10,800 DraftKings salary, and Najee Harris has scored 16, 5, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 19, 12, and 20 rush attempts on top of 7, 5, and 3 pass targets. So he's getting pretty good volume. He's gotten good volume all season long. So I like Najee Harris here versus the Cleveland Browns. Okay, now let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So the stud on the slate is Deontay Johnson from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Deontay Johnson has averaged 18.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.3 pass targets per game. So lots of volume. He's on the field for 90% of the snaps, going to be about 48% owned, projected at 16 fantasy points here tonight. He's 10,400 DraftKings salary. Deontay Johnson has scored 16, 10, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 9, 5, and 10 pass targets. He got 1 rush attempt in his those last 2. I like Deontay Johnson here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, for the Cleveland Browns, you have Jarvis Landry, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Jarvis Landry has averaged 11 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.9 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 96% of the snaps, going to be about 45% owned, projected at 11.9 fantasy points here tonight. He's 8,400 DraftKings salary, and Jarvis Landry has scored 10 and 15 fantasy points in his last 2 games off of 7 and 8 pass targets. So I like Jarvis Landry here versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, now if you're looking to save some salary at the wide receiver position, the next guy that I'm looking at is Chase Claypool from the Pittsburgh Steelers, averaging 11.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 6.9 pass targets per game, and about 1 rush attempt per game. He's on the field for 78% of the snaps, going to be about 33% owned, projected at 11.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's 7,200 DraftKings salary, and Chase Claypool has scored 8, 2, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 2, and 9 pass targets, and again 1 rush attempt in those last 2 games. So I like Chase Claypool here versus the Cleveland Browns. Okay, now it is with the Cleveland Browns wide receivers where you're going to be able to save a bunch of salary on this slate. Probably going to have to play one of these guys in your lineup. So you got Rashard Higgins from the Cleveland Browns. He scored 11 and 5 fantasy points in the last 2 games off of 6 and 5 pass targets. He's going to be about 14% owned, only 5,600 DraftKings salary. So he's an option here to save some salary in your lineup. And then you have Donovan Peoples-Jones from the Cleveland Browns, who has scored 2, 9, and 14 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 6, 8, and 7 pass targets. And he's going to be about 31% owned. And it looks like he's on the field for more snaps than is Rashard Higgins. Looks like he gets more pass targets. And he's projected at 8.1 fantasy points here tonight. And he's less salary at 5,000 DraftKings salary. So that's why his ownership is about 31%, where Rashard Higgins only about 14%. So I like Donovan Peoples-Jones here versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, now if you were to go for a deep sleeper pick or a dart throw wide receiver here, where would you go? Let's take a look at this here. And let's just look at Ray Mccloud. Are these targets recent? It looks like for the past 4 games, Ray Mccloud has been seeing between 66 to 85% of the snaps, and he's catching balls here in these games. So I think if I would gonna go for a deep sleeper pick, a guy that you're gonna save a ton of salary at super low ownership, take a look at Ray Mccloud from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He scored 7, 1, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, 3, and 8 pass targets. Now he's only 3,400 DraftKings salary. So I like Ray Mccloud here versus the Cleveland Browns, but the other guy that you got who might be the better option here, and he's even less salary, is James Washington from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He scored 0, 7, and 17 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 2, 5, and 6 pass targets. He's going to be about 9% owned, and he's only 2,200 DraftKings salary. So I like James Washington as a sleeper pick here versus the Cleveland Browns. Okay, moving on to the tight end position. I like Pat Freiermuth from the Pittsburgh Steelers. playing the Cleveland Browns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Pat Freiermuth has averaged 9.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.6 pass targets per game. He's going to be about 25% owned, projected at 8.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary, and he scored 8 and 11 fantasy points in the last 2 games off of 4 and 3 pass targets. So I like Pat Freiermuth here versus the Cleveland Browns. Now, I do prefer Pat Freiermuth, but if you want to play the tight end from the Cleveland Browns, that would be Austin Hooper, and he's averaging 6.3 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4 pass targets per game, on the field for 71% of the snaps, going to be about 18% owned, projected at 6.8 fantasy points here tonight. He's 5,200 DraftKings salary, and he scored 6 and 14 fantasy points in his last 2 games off of 5 and 7 pass targets. So that's Austin Hooper here versus the Pittsburgh Steelers.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.